What is up, guys? So today we're going to be going over advanced equalization techniques. If you haven't seen my last video on invisible audio and basic cutting, you should go check that out because this will go over the frequency analyzer and the cutting of invisible audio. So now this is the next step in that process, which is after you do your cutting of invisible audio, you want to bring back all of these different these frequencies that were cut during the process of the basic cutting and equalization. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over those techniques using a handy plugin called Channel Strip. And Channel Strip is an all-in-one free equalization compressor. It's also a gate and filter, which is super useful because it's an all-in-one and it takes less power to run. And this is actually used on like actual Avid. I think it's on the X6, which is kind of their flagship digital mixer, excuse me. And so before we even actually go into the particulars of this plugin, you gotta understand exactly what you're equalizing, because equalization varies from genre to genre, and there are different processes. And so in this case, we're going to be mixing a semi-pop song, semi-rock song. It's more of a ballad, so I'm thinking, when ballad comes to mind, I think of very open ambient sounds, nice piano, nice guitar, reverbed vocals, and so when you think about that, that'll make your equalization a lot easier, because if you were doing a grunge song, you're going to have very dirty punchy drums that are pretty upfront, with kind of distorted vocals and overdrive guitars, and very, very punchy basses. So in this case, the guitars with the EBow. The EBow is actually a device that I use for making a very ambient sound, kind of violin sound with the guitar. And I recorded it dry in this case. I'm going to add a little bit of effect on it, but first I want to deal with compression and equalization. So when I'm dealing with an EBow or electric guitar, I'll normally just go to their factory default sets, which in this case is just an electric guitar, and that will kind of like set the tone for what the electric guitars are going to sound like. And so I'm going to bypass it quickly just to show you what the EBow sounds like. Okay, and now this is with. So as you can see that the highs were much more affected. There was a little bit more of an increase in the bass. There was a filter actually on the really lows, and there's a little bit done on the highs and the low mids. So that's really nice to have just when you want to just do a quick equalization. And so what I normally do is, if I want to just do a quick equalization like that, I'll do that, and then if I have any other like electric guitars like it, like I have an electric guitar solo that is done on this track, and so what I'll do is I'll just normally add right to it, and in this case I'm just going to bring that back, just so I have it. Yep. And now I'm just going to make it active quickly, which can be done by right clicking, and you just press make active. And now you'll have it back, and since there's nothing on this track, I can go and hide and make that inactive, and I can press Option, click, and hold your click, and then drag it all the way down, so that now the compression is on the electric guitar, which is this, which you will hear in just a second. So that was done dry. So we're going to add in effects in another video. So what I'll normally now move on to is I'll go from if I had a full multi-track, I would go from drums, and I'll go down to the bass, the guitars, the pianos, and I'll do vocals last. So in this case, we're going to go into the acoustic guitar. This was done twice as mono. I didn't duplicate it. I actually replayed it, and then I just, if you can see in the mixer window, I just panned it left and right, but I'm only going to deal with one right now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a specific section of it. Like just, let's take this section right here, and let's just move it to the beginning, just so you have a good 4-bar loop or something. All right, so now I soloed it out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the plugin. You can do it. You can pull it up in EQ or Dynamics. It doesn't really matter. And I'll usually pull up in Dynamics, and I'll pull up the channel strip. And on this one, I'm just going to do by hand because I actually feel that the acoustic guitars are okay. The acoustic guitar settings are fine, but I actually prefer to do it on my own just because you have a lot more control over it. So the first thing I'll do is I'll compress it, and then I'll go to equalization, and any other things that need to be done in this I'll do later. So what I start with is compression. And so I'll always start with the ratio, and then I'll move on to the threshold, the gain, the attack, and then the release. And so what I'll do is I'll always start with the ratio because that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the compression. Now the one number, if there's anything you remember from compression, or if there's anything that you take from this video, is that 4:1 is the most important number that you need to know in doing compression, because that's just the standard ratio for compression. And so I'll go into compression in another video, but basically it's you type in 4, and then you set that as your ratio. And then what I'll do is I'll go into the threshold, and the threshold is just saying like at what dB will you start seeing compression, or just start hearing compression. And so if you take a look at the guitars, you'll see this red dot will go back and forth. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to go over the edge so that you start seeing a red line, the attenuation, start going down. And you want, the key number here is around 3 to 6. 4 or 5 is good. You never want it above 6 because you'll start to have overcompression, and overcompression is bad, which I'll go into in another video. And so what we want to do here is we want to see the red line just go slightly over so that it's in that 4 to 5 range. So let's take a listen quickly and see where it is. Okay, so it's not going over yet. So what I'll do is I'll bring it less threshold, and you'll see that the this is moving. And so the threshold, let's do it to about 28 and see what that does. Alright, so we want just a little more over, so maybe to 29 and 30. So let's do that. Let's see what that looks like. Let's bring it to 30. Let's just make it an even 30. And I'll do 30, enter. Oop, my bad. I'll bring it back. Okay, there we go. So now, as you can see, we did a little too much, so we just need to find that middle ground. That's perfect. Okay, so now we're just gonna bring it up by around 5. Let's do 4 dB just to do it for test. Perfect. So that's and also the line is going at around 4. So now what we deal with is the attack and the release. So with the attack and the release, basically think of it as a door. So how quickly the door opens for compression on the acoustic guitar, and then how quickly it closes it is the way you got to think about it. So when you open the door, how long is it going to take for that door to open? and when it closes, how long is it going to take for it to close. And normally with guitars, it's not like bass, or it's not like a plucked violin, so the attack and the release don't have to be quick and quick. It can actually be a quick attack and a fairly slow release. But the thing is, you just kind of have to feel it out and kind of understand what the instruments are. So you don't want to have, like with a plucked violin, you don't want it to be a very long release, because that will start to overlap with the quick attack and it will start to sound very strange. But where it is right now, I actually kind of like it. But if you look at the compression on the EBow, it's much different. And actually, I like that it's different because the EBow is kind of like a sustaining sound. So I'm going to keep it at that. So actually, in this case, I'm not going to touch it too much. So now we have a nice compression on the guitar, which you can hear was like this before. And now it's like this. Just a little more present, which is important. So now what I do is I go into the equalization section. And so what you want to do here is you got to think about, again, like, what are you compressing? I mean, what are you equalizing? And so what I'll normally do is I'll kind of just start with like one of the high mid frequencies to the high frequencies. So you can actually, it doesn't actually matter exactly where you start, but if you hear something and you want to kind of deal with it, you kind of just want to move it. What I'll do is I'll kind of test it. So I'll just take one of them and I'll move it around, and I'll just kind of see where things sound ringy or it sounds strange. And so that is actually good for deduction. But if there's something you want more of and you bring it here, or if you bring it over here, say you want more resonance or you want more detail, you'll just, what I'll do is I'll set a point where I like it. So let's just say it's like, in this case, it's 3K. And then I'll take the Q, which is right here, and I'll increase it so that you have a more pointed or a more isolated Q, and then how much you do it, if you want to deduct it or if you want to subtract it, if you want to increase it, that is up to you. So what you want to start with, though, is you want to kind of like think of a goal. So in this case, if you want more detail, it's going to be in the more high frequencies, like the 5K to 10K range, and you got to find where the specific detail that you want is between those two frequencies, and then you take that process and then you either deduct it or you increase it. Now, it's very important that you don't do too much, because that's over equalization, and it's very obvious if you do a lot to it that it comes out in the mixes. And especially if you do too much, because in mastering they'll put more compressors and more of the details that you didn't want in there are going to be in there, and there's nothing worse than having your stuff on the radio and having over compressed it or over equalized it and getting those details that you necessarily didn't hear while you were mixing but are on the radio now. So it's always good to be very subtle when you equalize. So in this case, we're just going to start with detail. So I'm going to play it, and I'm going to take our high filter, and I'm just going to move it around and see where the detail that I want is. So let's say it's right around there. So what I'll do then is I'll take my Q and I'll make it much smaller. Like, let's put it like right around there. And then I'll subtract it. And now since I think that it needs to be a little more toward the 5K range, I can just actually take the frequency right here and I can move it like that. Alright, and now I'm going to deal with my my high frequency, my high mid frequency, and I'm going to find a spot where it doesn't necessarily sound great. So then I'm going to find that and I'm going to deduct it. So right around there. So now what I'll do is I'll take the Q again. Make it like that. And bring it right down. Alright, so now what I'll do is I'll take my, give it a little more body now. That sounds right around good. So now what I'll do is I'll maybe make it a little more focused. So I'll bring the Q up just a little bit. Alright, and now maybe we can even put a filter on it. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if I can find a filter. Yep, alright, perfect. And now you can actually kind of test it. See where it gets muffled? So now we're muffled. Let's do it right around there. And then we'll bring another one. Just to cut any of the highs. So now we have a very focused area of frequency for the filters. And this is super useful when you just want to focus on one particular area. I'm actually going to move this just a little bit, just so that we have a little more room. So now that sounds pretty good. So now what I'll do is I'll just press Option, or Alt in this case, and click, but hold the click and drag so that now we have it on both. And now this is what it sounds like in the stereo. So I think I'm going to do a little more work on that, but that was just a very quick overview on how to do it with guitars. Now we're going to do one more, and this is going to be on the vocals. I'm going to take the exact same plugin, and I'm going to apply it to the vocals. But in this case, I'm actually going to do a preset, just because I think it's a little quicker and I think it's going to be a little more accurate. But I can always just listen to it and kind of hear for the specific details that I want out of it. So I'm just going to quickly do that. I'm going to listen to the preset, and if I like it, I'm going to keep it. But if it's not exactly what I want, I'm going to play with it just a little bit. And what you have to do is just solo it out. Yep. Now.
I was lost in a state of mind, something I couldn't find. as you entered my mind, and I was captured by your endless love.
Okay, so I think that's a little bit of a telephone sound. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add just a little more um, body.
I was lost in a state of mind, something I couldn't find, as you entered my mind.
So actually, in a way, that is a place where there's a little you want to actually deduct just a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll take the cue again. I'm gonna play it as I do
I
it.
was lost in a state of mind, something I couldn't find, as you entered my mind, and I was captured by your endless love. Spent all my... I was lost in a state of mind.
Now I'm just gonna adjust so that it sounds a little less telephony.
I was lost in a state of mind, something I couldn't find, as you entered my mind, and I was captured by your endless love.
Perfect. Now I'm going to bring it back down, and I'm gonna bring it to the other. In this case, I actually duplicated it. I would have done it over. I actually don't know why I didn't, but this is what it sounds like with both.
I was lost in a state of mind, something I couldn't find, as you entered my mind, and I was captured.
All right, now just all together. You'll hear a little more.
State of mind, something I couldn't find, as you entered my mind.
All right, perfect. And that is a basic overview on advanced techniques on equalization. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me. I'll put my email in the description below. And please subscribe. And any requests for videos, I am more than welcome to do them. Thank you. And in the next video, we're going to go over mixing. The basic mixing.